You're listening to the Family Discipleship Podcast, a podcast of training the church. This is Adam Griffin, and I'm here with my co-host, Mrs. Cassie Bryant. Chelsea could not be with us this morning, but Cassie's here, and we're going to have some guests with us here in a second. Cassie, for our topic today, I'm wondering, what scared you when you were a kid? What made you anxious? What was young Cassie kind of afraid of?
Okay, so one was, I think it was a valid fear. It was storms, like really, really loud storms.
Okay.
And then the other one was not valid because I was never forgotten at school, but I was often maybe the last one picked up. And I would be afraid that I was forgotten. That I got left at school.
By the bus driver or by your parents?
No, by a parent.
Okay. Yeah, that never happened, right? I also had irrational fears as a kid. I kind of grew up in Nebraska, but I had an irrational fear of sharks in swimming pools.
Oh my
I just always thought, which are not their natural habitat anyway, but definitely not in Nebraska.
Was that Jaws induced?
You know what? I don't know. I honestly think I watched 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea way too young. And I think I just thought,
yes.
Giant
I never
squid.
watched it. I'm still too young to watch that movie. Maybe in my retirement home.
Well, I'm so glad, guys, today that we are welcoming back to the podcast again two of our favorite people, the people that we learn from so much. So, Cassie, guess who's with us today? We've got David Thomas and Sissy Goff with us today.
Woo! We're just missing the dogs.
That's true. Neither are very far, I don't think.
They never are they?
No.
Hey, Sissy, we're going to talk about these books here in a second. When you were a kid, anything that you were scared of? Anything that when you think about fear and anxiety and you're dealing so much in ministering to families and ministering to kids and counseling people, what were the fears and anxieties you had when you were a child?
Well, it's funny. David and I were talking about one recently. He reminded me of this. I think mine was kind of a rational fear. But my house and chain link fence and where I had a beautiful playhouse that I got to play in. Yeah. And it backed up to a neighbor named Sid who wore a brown jumpsuit every day that I remember. And he had two brown Doberman pinschers.
Ooh.
And every time I was in my yard, those dogs were like... at the chain link fence. So,
this is like straight out of Toy Story.
I was going to say, Sid's the bad guy in Toy Story.
Yeah, with the dog. I think a scary dog.
Oh, my goodness.
There you go.
Yeah, this might be made up.
It was so valid they made a movie.
I know it. My fear was,
That's
being left alone in a ravine with a wildebeest stampede when my uncle was against my father.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's like...
Let's keep this going. How many movies can we get?
Hey, David, one of the things that we're so grateful for, you've written books for parents, you've done counseling for kids. We've got these new resources for younger kids, 4 to 7-year-olds. But one of the reasons these are so important is because things like fear and anxiety seem maybe increasingly prevalent, but definitely prevalent in this generation. Before we jump into some of these resources and why you made them, can you maybe just help us understand, is there a reason why anxiety is so prevalent in children? Either in this generation or just in general? Why is anxiety something that we're seeing in kids?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with your phrasing of increasingly prevalent. And I think it's always been prevalent. We understand it more now. So I think it's fascinating how often Sissy and I sit with adults and we'll ask about their family history, like any history of anxiety or depression, and how commonly I will hear parents say, laughingly sometimes, like, none that was diagnosed because we didn't understand back then, but certainly evident. And so I think it's always been prevalent. We understand it differently, but increasingly prevalent. And if I were to point at 2 reasons, we could talk all day about the different reasons, but Sissy and I both love Jonathan Haidt's work, The Anxious Generation, and he talks about the role of technology, which we can't not pay attention to, but also there's less conversation, but every bit of importance. Sissy's colleague is going to make an appearance right here with us in this
moment.
Well,
star. Really, the star.
She knows we're talking about her. She's like, here I come.
She's got FOMO.
There it is. But the other being, our attempts as parents in moments when I don't even think we're aware we're doing it, that we are trying to bubble wrap the kids we love. We're trying to eliminate the opportunity that they would experience discomfort or struggle of any kind, and how we know from a lot of research in that space, nothing about that is helpful.
Yes.
It's almost like it's our fears projected onto our kids that almost create in them an anxious spirit.
Absolutely.
It's like, well, they were never afraid of, X, Y, or Z. I don't know. Until we introduced the fear to them. And then now they're suddenly afraid of it,
There it is.
Okay, so I really am excited for us to talk about this whole series of new books you are putting out to talk about emotions with our kids. So let's start with Lucy Learns to Be Brave. The book focuses on the Daystar dogs as main characters, which I love. My girls will love this. Sissy, why did you choose the dogs for these stories?
Well, they're such an important part of what we do. I think we have 6 dogs who are practicing with us today at
That's
Daystar.
amazing.
And I know so many kids' favorite therapists. It's so fun how often I will walk through the lobby and kids recognize my dog. They don't have a clue who I am, but they know my dog. And David and I have talked about this so many times, the difference that we see dogs make. And we know from the research that literally dogs change what's happening in our brain. Our cortisol, which is a stress hormone, gets more regulated. Our blood pressure drops. I mean, dogs even are helping patients with Alzheimer's. They reduce cognitive decline. I mean, there are all these beautiful things that dogs do. And we see daily in our offices. I will tell you all my first example. So our first dog that worked at Daystar was my first dog I ever owned, who was named Noelle. And I had an adolescent who, you know, a parent, a therapist's worst nightmare is for a child to say they want to take their life. And this girl said she wanted to take her life. And I had to step out and call her mom and have her mom come in so that her mom could take her straight to the hospital. And when I stepped out of my office, I left Noelle in there with her so she didn't have to be alone. I walked back in and Noelle was in her lap licking her tears. I mean, they just inherently know. We know they are intuitive in a way that we don't even imagine. And so I think kids have this innate relationship with dogs that they just connect at this heart level. And so we really felt like there were some messages we could use, these dogs who've made such a difference in so many kids' lives, to speak to where we as therapists see kids are really in need. And courage and resilience felt like the important first too, because that's where specifically we're seeing so many kids struggle today.
Yeah. Amen.
And I'm finding that my daughters are not outgrowing their need for their dog, right? I feel like as my oldest is cresting teen years, she's 12. Like she is almost like needs our dog. We also have a Lucy. You know, she really, the oldest helped her through some anxiety in 2nd grade. And then now it's like, I mean, it's her best friend. She comes home from school and she's just I don't know. It's so sweet to see their little companionship. And Lucy is very attuned to all of the emotions and feels. We joke that she's kind of the not thermometer, but like she can tell us the temperature of the home by the way she tucks her tail or by the way she goes to another room. We're like, okay, maybe the raised voices they're just so intuitive. They're amazing.
They're so intuitive.
Amazing
I know.
animals.
I'll never forget a girl who said to me when her dad died, she said, the person I talk to the most is my dog.
Wow.
That's sweet.
Yeah. God's good gift to us. Okay, well, in Lucy Learns to Be Brave, you tell the story of how fear makes Lucy start to believe things that aren't true. So can you help us understand that? Is that the approach that parents should take with their kids, helping them to see like what's real or what's not about their fears, what's true or what's not?
Yes, absolutely. Because we were just talking in the beginning about fears that were irrational and so many things that kids get stuck on. You know, y'all may remember we talk about it like the one loop roller coaster at the fair. They have these intrusive thoughts that are so often irrational. They're lies, and we know who the father of lies is. And so there are these lies that pop into their heads. And I think when we can say, those aren't true, and we don't want to trust that voice in the back of your head that's telling you these things that aren't true.
Yeah.
And instead, we want you to learn all these other tools and be reminded that you're safe and you can do brave things because of how loved you are. And that is the overarching message of the Little Lucy book.
That's so good. And David, in your new book, we've got, it's called Owen Learns He Has What It Takes. So you're giving parents opportunity to think about resilience with their kids. How do you see that lesson as an important biblical principle for families?
It's a great question. And, you know, I think Sissy and I have 2 dear friends who we learn from on the regular. Their names are Jay and Catherine Wolf, and they are behind a wonderful organization called Hope Heals that we love.
Yes, I love them.
I do too. And Jay and Catherine have spoken a blessing over their sons with consistency that I love their words. So I'm going to borrow them in response to your question. They said, God made you to do the hard things in the good story he is writing for your life.
Yeah.
And I think if we were to speak that message with consistency to the kids and adolescents we love, think about all the truth we're communicating in that. Like, there's the truth of John 16, like in this world, you're going to have trouble. The guarantee in Romans 5 and Romans 8, like we're going to groan with all of creation. We're going to struggle this side of heaven, but the struggle is what gives way to perseverance, which is what builds character, which is what makes us people of hope. But
Amen.
We're often talking, I think, well about the good story, but not about the hard things and how kids are capable of those hard things. And so that's really the story I wanted to tell in the Owen book. And I tell it in a funny way of Owen actually, he and I volunteered for 3 years at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, and we were on the oncology hematology unit. So we were with a lot of kids who were really sick, who'd been newly diagnosed with cancer. And when we started that experience, he was overwhelmed by all the white coats, the machines, the different sounds that were going off in these rooms, so much so that he was fearful to walk into a room. And I was thinking, I cannot believe I've spent all this time and money training this dog who won't even go into a hospital room. And so the first few attempts, I had to carry this 70-pound dog into the room because he very much wanted to be with the kid inside. He was just overwhelmed by what was happening around him. And he was walking backwards. I was helping him move forward. And he would have missed all the good things that were happening and engaging those kids if he hadn't built that resilience to be able to step forward when his tendency was to move backwards. So that's the message that we want so much to communicate to kids.
Yeah, that's so good. David, so much of what you're saying and what you have said and what you've written has been a blessing. I think one of the the niche that the Lord has given each of you to speak to some of the most prominent problems this generation is having in a way that's godly, clear, and helpful and practical. So great. So to bring this to a kid's book,
Adam.
Yeah, you got it. I mean it. I mean every word of it. So to bring a kid's book alongside what you've already done to give parents the opportunity, which you guys know, a kid's book is as much about discipling the parent who's reading the book as it is about helping the kid think through these things. So and we'll get to it in a second about the thermometer. We'll get to the feelings chart and how helpful those things have been. But David, one of the things that I see a lot with parents, I think the reason they feel anxious and afraid, the reason they feel a lot of pressure is that it seems like there's this kind of like, almost like a very narrow road with a ditch on either side. And the advice they get all the time is about the ditches, right? So if it says like, hey, be really friendly with your kid, but don't be their buddy, you've still got to be their parent. And so you got to do both of those things. And you've got to be really like hard-lined on some things, but don't be too strict with them. And you've got to be really involved in their life, but don't be over-involved in their life. And you've got to not overreact, but not underreact to everything that happens. And one of the things related to what you're talking about that I hear often is, how do I decide when to let my child face something difficult? And how do I decide when it's okay to rescue them from something? When do I show them, maybe demonstrate, this is how we handle something with resilience? And when do I say, I need to take a step back and say, you need to handle it? And making that decision for parents seems paralyzing. I think you and I would both agree, if they're always one or always the other, that is really hard. If you're always rescuing your kid from everything difficult, if you're bubble wrapping the kid, to use your language from earlier, you're not letting them build resilience. But if you're also maybe just hands off, saying like, it's just, you're going to have to deal with this on your own, kid, then maybe there's almost like a passivity and a neglect, or at least a neglect of duty to say, let me show you how this is done. David, how do you help parents that feel that pressure to say, I don't know when and I don't know how to let my kid build resilience and to know when to rescue? What's resilient? What's rescue? What's resilient? When do I do that? David, how would you advise a parent who's struggling with that?
First off, that's a great question. And I think every parent listening would say, I have known 100 moments like that. It's not always clear. I think even in the everyday of sibling conflict that's happening in the back of the vehicle, like, do I intervene and referee, or do I just let them work it out on their own?
Right.
It's just not always clear when we need to step in or step back. And there's an equation that Sissy and I talk a lot about that we love, of empathy and questions, that I think in those uncertain moments is a great safe place to land. So if kids voice something that's hard, I think 100% of the time we're in the safe zone to start with empathy. Like, you know what? I bet that was hard today when that happened at school. You know what? That homework does look frustrating. I can't imagine what it was like to be cut from the team and your best friends made it. Like, whatever is the situation that we could speak to with some understanding and support as our starting place.
That's good.
And then I think moving toward questions, what do you want to do with that? how do you want to handle that when you go back to school tomorrow? That I think speaks to how much we believe in the kids we love, how capable God has made them, how all this good stuff is already inside of them. They don't need me to do all the intervening and stepping in always. And I think those questions are so empowering that allow our kids to lead first in what they're capable of. Because to your great question, otherwise, I think in our best attempts to support them with too much intervening, we end up just increasing fragility and diminishing durability. Like we're just not helping them tap into those God-given strengths because we're doing so much rescue in that space. So I think empathy and questions could be a good equation. Maybe write that on a note card, put on a bathroom mirror to anchor you to some good concrete practices in those moments when it's unclear whether I should get involved or not.
That's good. I don't like to look in my bathroom mirror anyway, so I'll just post it all over it. Just a really big poster. That'll be perfect. Sissy, I mentioned a second ago, but one of the things you've done is taken some of your counseling homework, counseling practices, the work you've done, and you've put it in this book. This thermometer is a version of what I know you do when you're meeting with kids. Can you tell us a little bit about, for the people who don't have the book sitting in front of them, why put this thermometer chart in there? Explain to us maybe what it is and why you love it.
Well, I love David uses the words often in Raising Emotionally Strong Boys. He talks about naming and navigating, helping kids learn to name and navigate. And I would say Owen has more of the tools to name, which we'll talk about in a second. And Lucy, and then more books that might be coming soon are going to help more in the navigating space. And so one of the things that we have seen increasingly in the last really 5 to probably 8 years is that when we think about emotions on a 1 to 10 scale, we're seeing kids who live at 10 more than ever before. And it can be anxiety, it can be anger, it can be embarrassment. I mean, it's sadness, it's any different emotion. And sometimes it's that they don't lack the ability to regulate. Sometimes it's that they don't want to regulate. They'd rather us be the coping strategies than develop any coping strategies on their own. So there are a lot of reasons. But one of the first things we'll do in our office is create a thermometer. And because I work with a lot of girls, I call it a drama-mometer, sometimes not necessarily to them. But
I'm using that with my 3 girls.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it feels like. But I think when we can, and I use Lucy to help illustrate this, that Lucy, I mean, my dog really did, if someone hiccuped around her, you would have thought that the biggest dog you've ever seen was growling. The first time it ever happened, she literally, I was meeting with a woman I'd never met with, did not know, and I got the hiccups, and she tried to get on top of this woman's head. I couldn't figure out what to do to get her down. It was so bad. But for her, hiccups could feel like a 10. And so I use that as an example of helping her understand, well, hiccups are really a 2. And a big, scary dog that's about to attack her is more of a 10. And so helping kids understand what's a 10 on their scale, what's a 2 on their scale, and what are the things we can do appropriately to bring any of those things back to manageable. Because when they're living at 10, nothing feels manageable. And we know they flip to the amygdala part of their brain, and so they can't even reason themselves out of it. So that perspective taking feels foundational to helping them navigate big emotions.
Yeah, it's so great that you're giving them a literal tool in this book to be able to have not just one-time reading conversations, but ongoing conversations with their kid, right?
It's creating a script. Yes.
Exactly. So one of the things you have with the children's book too, that's so beautiful, not that we haven't read your other books repeatedly. I read them every night, but with a kid's book, with the kid's book, it is really a narrative you're coming back to over and over again, typically with a kid. But when you put a tool, Sissy, like this in there, it's also a tool that these parents come back to over and over again, which is such a beautiful thing, especially, this is not just for, I want to make clear too, these books aren't just for like some kind of diagnosed anxiety disorder in a child.
No.
It's any child who has a parent who loves them, who wants to disciple them, who wants to lead them, to say, let me come alongside you. This is the way our family can talk about our feelings. This is the way we can talk about how we're understanding what's real and what's not. And and you're giving them a tool to have that conversation. And I love that. David, in yours, you use what I have seen many people use, but you make a version of it with Owen Obviously, the illustrator, I don't think you did the illustrations, but an illustrator took them. If you did, I'm super impressed, honestly.
No. We had an incredible illustrator that we love who did a beautiful job with these books.
Yeah, they turned out incredible.
Yeah.
But you put the feelings chart in the Owen book. Can you tell us a little about that? So you got the thermometer in Lucy's book. In Owen's, we have the feelings chart. Help us understand that and what that's supposed to do to equip parents.
Yeah. To everything Sissy just shared, we really did want to give parents these practical tools to lay this really solid foundation on the front side, because we've written a lot of content for parents. We wrote some workbooks for kids in the 6 to 12 space and began thinking, how could we, with kids even younger than 6, begin laying this foundation? How could we give parents tools so that we'd start as early as possible? I love the wisdom of that old Frederick Douglass quote of, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And so this idea of let's build strong kids on the front side. And so this is a tool to just help really young kids begin to name their experience. And the idea being that if I can see these expressions and be in conversation with my parents, it's where kids do some of the best connecting of the dots. And Sissy and I both have a dear friend who started a treatment center here in Nashville for adult professional men. So these are executives, CEOs, pastors, attorneys, men who have been very successful in their vocational spaces who've found themselves in the throes of addiction. And on the first day of their arrival at the treatment program, they do a check-in where they put a feelings chart on the floor and then just ask everybody, how are you feeling about being here? And he said, David, I'm just fascinated by how many Ivy League trained physicians, professionals who cannot name how they feel. You know, they can't make those connections that have traveled that far into life without that skill set in place, which is a huge part of where they likely found themselves in the throes of addiction, because they're numbing, not naming. And so how could we be about the work of really equipping kids with these skills on the front side so that it's always familiar language? And then as we just sit around the dinner table as families and talk about our days, they're getting to hear us as parents use more of this language. Like, you know what? I felt really sad today. I think I said something that hurt a friend or a coworker's feelings, and I want to circle back and check in on them. I felt embarrassed today. I had to give a presentation to the board of directors, and I didn't feel as prepared as I wanted to, knowing that all that narrating is what we call it, that we're doing as adults is where kids are making those good connections and hearing this language.
It's good.
That's so good. I'm currently feeling very glad and encouraged. I had to pick out my face on a chart.
I don't feel like climbing on anybody's head. And you can hiccup all you want. I think I can handle it right now. Yes.
All right, Sissy, you teased this a little bit, but you guys have more books coming out this fall in the same series. We'd love to hear more about those.
Yes, we have books coming out about 2 more of our therapy dogs. One is named Pippa, and we wanted to write a book about for kids who have a younger sibling on the way and might feel anxious. And so I don't even know that I remember Pippa learns to share the spotlight. And Pippa has a tutu and she's in the spotlight and she's doing a lot of twirling and not getting a lot of attention when that baby comes. And she learns how to share her birthday parade. And I think it's going to be really helpful for a lot of kiddos. And then the other one is called Happy Finds Her Calm. Is that right, David?
That's it.
And it is Happy Goes to Therapy Dog School. And she is so excited to meet all the new friends. Happy keeps hopping over other children, standing too close, being very overwhelming to a lot of kids, which we know a lot of kids. Yeah. And a lot of kids have trouble with that regulation, even in their excitement. And so teaching kids kind of to read social cues a little bit more through the Happy book. Those are the goals. But we're so excited. And we have some more ideas for more coming later.
Oh,
we're having so much fun with them.
I can just imagine the interactions of just like, ooh, what about this book? Or I don't know, like all the ideas, like the door feels so open to you guys for more resources like this. And you're already so well equipped. In my mind, the writing part comes pretty easily, because you've been doing this for so long. It's natural. And so we're really excited to get our hands on those. So I work in church and in like the church world and family ministries. And you can even see we've got like kids books back here. And so we are always recommending books like this. I'm thinking right now of several of our new moms who've just had their second baby and how great it would be for their 2-year-old. Because especially like in the Bible Belt, a lot of oldest siblings are starting to have younger siblings around the age of 2, 3.
Right.
And they don't have the ability to articulate everything that they're feeling about having to share the spotlight. And so how helpful these resources will be just for the church. Is that something you guys kind of have had in mind about how the church can even help partner with you guys or help you use these resources in their classrooms or in their curriculum? Have y'all thought about that or partnered with any churches yet?
We've absolutely thought about it. And we'd want to give credit where credit is due. We've had endless conversations with so many delightful children's pastors over the years about seeing evidence of where kids are struggling more and more than any other time. And whether it's in, the everyday experience of more kids are struggling with separating out from parents. And how do we offer support just in that moment at drop off? And so hoping these tools can not only be something parents could use at home, but churches in their spaces, teachers in a classroom, just our great hope is wherever adults are supporting kids, that this could somehow be a helpful tool.
Well, there's an idea right there. A dog getting dropped off at the groomer, feeling anxious. And now you go. Likening that to a kid being dropped off at church. Separation anxiety is so real. I always tell parents, that's as good. This means they love you. But you can walk away. We've got it now. We'll take it from here. We'll call you if we need you. They have such a hard time walking away. Okay, how would you connect what y'all are teaching in these books with what spiritual leadership looks like in the home? So since our podcast focuses really on family discipleship and leading our homes, how would you connect these resources to that idea of leading our homes?
We talk so much with parents about wanting you to be the source for spiritual foundations in the home, wanting you to be the source emotionally for your kids, information-wise on all the scary topics that are out there. And I think anytime, honestly, we're sitting with a child, reading something together, we're doing the reading and then we're inviting conversation, which we have conversation topics in these books too.
Oh, cool.
Then we're establishing ourselves as that safe, trusted source.
Yeah.
And I think we're building connection in those ways that are really important for the rest of our relationship, So I think that is a way that even without saying, hey, I'm trying to remind you that I'm here as your source in all things, that's what we're creating just in those moments together.
That's
so
excellent.
Great.
Hey, before we let you guys go, first of all, I'm so grateful for this conversation. I'm grateful for the resources you guys put out. I imagine that the privileged children who actually get to sit on your couch and receive your counseling directly, you are literally changing their lives and getting to see some of that fruit. But I also know y'all will never see the extent of the fruit you do. You don't get to see all your podcast listeners listening and their families changing. You won't get to see all the moms and dads reading these books with their kids and get to see these kids regulate. And maybe when they grow up, they won't even acknowledge that it was Owen or Lucy's stories that made the biggest difference, but they'll just know how to regulate their emotions. It'll just make sense. They'll know how dramatic the temperature of their day has been because they're just equipped with the tools you guys have made. And so I know until glory, you probably won't see all the fruit that you guys are doing, but y'all have produced a harvest of righteousness. And I think you guys have so much to be proud of. So we're so grateful for you. Before we let you guys go, would you just maybe share for a second how our listeners can be praying for y'all or for Daystar or for your ministry, for raising boys and girls, your podcast, or just for you, your family? Like, how can we pray for Sissy and David?
Well, first and foremost, I feel so teary with what you just said.
Me
and
too.
Would like to know if we could stay online with you all day. Is that an option?
Only if I could receive some counseling.
Encouraging. You too. You're so encouraging. And thank you that you'd even ask that question. I think, I would say in response to that, the desire that Sissy and I have with consistency is that we would steward this little space we've been given in ways that is hope-filled and Christ-centered. And I think in particular in this moment, I was talking with a friend this morning about, every time I turn on the news, every time I read the news, like I think fear is just raining down on all of us. Like there is something new to be afraid of in any given moment. And even in the parenting space, sometimes I think there's a lot of fear-driven approaches to getting parents' attention. And we have no desire to participate in that. No desire.
Amen.
Like we want so much to be a different voice in that space. And so I would just ask that you would pray that we would just continue to be faithful in being a different voice in this space and stewarding these opportunities well.
Amen.
Sissy, what would you say?
Well, I would add probably on a practical note that we both are counseling and in our Daystar office 4 days a week. And we're launching these 2 books that we're so excited about. And we have a big parenting conference in Nashville, September 13th.
Cool.
That we have some amazing friends coming to help us with that. And we're super excited about it. And so we have more than a few things on our plate currently. And we both have puppies, which whatever you have on your plate, they just knock it all off.
That's good.
So
they stop for nothing.
No. I was hollering at mine, trying to get her inside right before I hopped on. So I think our hearts, as David said, I love, David, how you express that. So to continue to pray for our mission and that people would feel encouraged and hopeful and that we would have the bandwidth to be able to continue to do what we so long to do.
Amen.
And not be taking it out on our dogs when we're tired.
That's good. Yeah. I'll tell you from experience, I love a full plate as long as the plate is full of stuff I love, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
Yes.
Well, thanks for listening, friends. If you think it's as important as we do to disciple your families, please help us out by giving us a great review. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can visit one of our sponsors or share this episode with one of your friends. If you want to keep up with us or join the conversation, you can find us at familydiscipleship.com or follow the Family Discipleship Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. We love you, listeners, and we'll be back with a Mother's Day episode here in just a couple weeks.